So here we are on vacation, um, doing the typical thing you see everybody do, put their hand out in front, walking around. Oh, I got my piece of wood. Um, so what I'm making here is a very crude wooden lure. I'm using very limited tools. The only thing I brought with me was a razor blade. I didn't have a plan of what I was going to make on vacation, but I was at a lake, so I figured, hey, you know what? Let's make a lure. There's some poles there. My grandfather had some tackle. So, yeah, here we go. So, piece of wood found in a burn pile by the fireplace. Even that pencil I found there, sharpened with the razor blade I brought. Well, utility knife. Didn't even have a saw. Found this rusty saw in the shed, and just sharp enough to cut this pine, very crudely, just to knock as much off as you can see here as possible. Figured I could get most of it with the utility knife. Not expecting the best results here. Never made a lure before, so yeah, just channeling my inner Marling Bates here and doing my best. Gotta love the old utility knife. So just taking shavings, being careful, of course. You can see I didn't record the whole thing. It took a while to get down to the shape. Here I am marking out the bevels or the roundovers, just kind of following the contour of the lure and making basically two lines, well, a line on each face to follow that I'll connect later to make kind of a roundover. I'm just using my finger as a guide here to make the lines and just very carefully going through, just taking light shavings, and really all I'm doing is connecting one line to the other. And you'll see here that here's the start of it. Just kind of made a nice round over from one face to the other using those lines as a guide. And basically you're just going to go around the whole thing. And you'll see that wood direction, the wood grain, is very important. I tried to go against the grain and the blade started digging in. So I turned it around and made much nicer, smoother cuts. So here it is, roughed out. Again, I wasn't going for perfection here. There's a lot of facets, kind of like the look. It's different. Still have the other side to go. But again, paying attention to that grain direction. It's getting hard to hold at this point. It's a little small and round and slippery. But just taking my time, taking light passes. Haven't gone into my thumb yet. You can see my family in the background there. When I get to the edge here, I'm just taking small little chunks out to make a nice round over to meet the other rounded faces together. Just little tiny facets. It makes it look enough like a rounded edge. And then here I had this idea that I put the line ties in. I bought this at the local Walmart. I bought this way too heavy gauge wire. And I thought I would put this screw in a little bit at a time and pull little bits out and make a hole, which ended up just taking too much. But here I am taking that heavy gauge wire. You can see the bracelet I'm wearing that my daughter made me. Just putting a little bend in this wire, which I don't end up using. You'll see in a second what I end up doing is cutting off a little piece which was going to go into the hole. You can kind of see the one in the background already in there. I put a few nicks in the wire. My thought was I'd insert it onto either end, use some sort of epoxy, wood glue, CA glue, which I had none of there. So my next thought, which I don't show it, but what I did was actually just push, since this is pine, I just pushed the wire all the way through and I kind of came out not where I wanted to, but what are you gonna do? So I just pushed it a little bit at a time, and it eventually made it all the way through, and just put a hook on either side, or a little eyelid on either side, and that way I know it's not going anywhere. As I mentioned before, I got this wire which was way too thick, so here I am adding a little what do you call those things? Swivel pieces, because the eye of the hook wouldn't even fit onto the wire, so I had to use that as an intermediary to attach it, and there it is on the fishing line, which this is iteration 1. You'll see why iteration 1 wasn't the greatest. So we got a bit of rain while we were there. The dock usually has a little bit of an extension coming off the end of there that brings it right to the shoreline, so you don't have to step in the water. Not that stepping in the water is the end of the world, but yeah, we got a bit of rain. It doesn't usually come up over the dock, and actually my brother-in-law had to put those pieces of cinder block down so the wood top wouldn't float away. Yeah. Anyway, so here we are at the lake, well, at the water, and we're gonna give this a little shot. It's really a nice place. Quiet, a little bit of storms on the horizon there. Old place, over 100 years old, but it is a good vacation. Great with the family. Everything is just relaxing. There's no internet. You can barely get a signal. Yeah, it's just a nice time. We have a pretty good beachfront here. Lots of other people store their boats there. Got a nice beach, volleyball, got a fire pit, lots of chairs, kids can play in the sand. Yeah, it's really a good time while we're there. There's my daughter there, about to go in the water, testing the water. So, this is why iteration 1 was not great. Obviously, it was pine. Threw it in the water. I knew it wasn't going to last just being raw wood, but man, did it float. And the fact that it's flat, it floated on its side. Here's me doing a few casts, just kind of testing it out, but it doesn't go underneath. It doesn't do anything. It just kind of sits on the. It just kind of floats on the top, which might work for some fish, but just wasn't catching anything. So I had to do a little adjustment here. So my thought was, one, I needed to go down a little bit. I needed to add some weight. The other thing is the belly, or this hump right here that I'm pushing this wire into, is the belly. Should technically be facing down, should be the furthest part down in the water. And like I said, since it's flat, it was just kind of sitting on the top. So this was my technique for getting the wire in. I didn't have any drill bits. So I just slowly pushed it in, and like I said, this is what I did with the wire that goes front to back. That way, if I happen to catch a fish, I would be pulling directly on the fish through the line, through the wire, not through a piece of pine. So here you can see I got through. Just takes a little bit of time, a little persuasion. This one I managed to get relatively center, which I was surprised. I thought I'd hit the other wire. Just bending the top over here, so that way the end, the top, the tip, the end, what have you. When I pull it back, you'll see in a second, I actually push it in. It actually locks into the top of the bait, and there's no wire poking out, and it kind of smooths out the top. Yeah, so the other end, the sharp end, just kind of goes in. Cut off any excess at the bottom, and I can actually make a loop out of that. And since this was a lot of pine, very buoyant, I had put a lot of weight. You can see I put a sinker right on the hook there, right on the shank of the hook. There's actually 2 sinkers on the line already, and that will keep it kind of balanced straight-wise. But yeah, just making this little loop at the bottom, and I'm going to stick a considerably large weight on there, but yeah, it needed it to get it to stay upright and actually sink down a little bit. So here it is, just casting and casting, and reeling it in and casting, and rinse and repeat. And man, would I like to say that I caught something. I did have a few fish come up and take a look at it, but that was about it. So overall, fun project. I enjoyed it. Really hope to make more, but this one did not catch anything. But with the tools I had, pretty happy with it, and hope to make improvements with the tools I have in my shop. Thanks for watching.